Welcome to another edition of the A-List Podcast. I'm your host, Sherrod Blakely, joined once again by Kwani A. Lunis and our good friend, Gary Washburn. Somebody's trying to show off their little Christmas bling. Go ahead.
It says my name, Kwani. My brothers got it for me. Shout out to my little brothers. Why is Gary already frustrated? Look at him, annoyed.
We're not even 10 seconds into the damn podcast, and Kwani's like already promoting her stuff.
Showing the blame. Damn.
I just wanted to show how to spell my name if anyone was curious. Kwani.
Why don't you just give me your Cash App info too while you at it?
I know that already. I already told you about my Cash App.
And your LinkedIn.
And y'all still haven't sent me anything. I'm waiting. What kind of co-host are you?
There may be a message in that, Kwani. Thirsty, my friend. Stay thirsty.
Oh my gosh. We've already derailed. Let's get back on track.
We are already off, but we're going to get back on track. Kind of like the Celtics are kind of getting back on track. Big win over the New Orleans Pelicans, which is kind of weird saying a big win over the Pelicans, knowing they're the Pelicans and how bad they are. But the Celtics have now won 5 of the last 6 games. They're obviously finding ways to win. It has not always been pretty, but they're getting it done. But this last Pelicans game, I wanted, and again, we talk about basketball, obviously, but there's still levels and layers that are connected with basketball that are part of the game, but maybe not necessarily on the court per se. And one that kind of jumped out at me from the Pelicans game was before it was on MLK Day, and Jaylen Brown addressed the crowd and had a few things to say about the holiday and said some things that I don't know how your social media feed responded, but I got a lot of mixed reactions to what Jaylen said. And he talked about how, systemic racism is real in Boston and in other parts of the country. And he was pretty clear that saying it wasn't just Boston. It was Boston and other parts of the country. But it seemed that once he said the Boston, everyone kind of tuned out with anything else he said after that and took offense to that. How was that? I mean, how did that play out with you guys? I mean, did you see any feedback from folks chiming in about that?
I started with the Celtics social media account because I was very curious to see what the followers would have said. And like you mentioned, there were mixed reviews. There are always going to be those people in the comments, no matter what the post is, are just talking about basketball. Like, why'd you shoot this way? And then you saw the people that were like, he's part of the problem. You're my favorite player. Why would you say that? And then you had the people that supported him. I thought it was interesting. The TD Garden crowd gave him a round of applause, which I think when you're in a public space, you can't help but have to do that. But I was curious how many people in that crowd didn't actually agree with what he said due to the way those comments seem to be rolling out on social media.
Yeah. What about you, Gary?
People supported him on my Twitter. One person was like, I'd like examples of how systemic racism still exists in Boston. I'd like concrete examples.
Excuse me.
That's the thing I think is what's happening now is that the person who is, you don't want to put them in a box, but those who don't support Black Lives Matter, those who don't believe in a lot of these causes and diversity are now saying, well, I need concrete examples of, even when I wrote my Black Coaches column, it was, well, give me concrete examples of, like, now you're getting the person that wants you to be very literal with them. Like, they want you to point out Brown versus Board of Education. They want you to point out the disparity in income between Black families and white families in Boston. They want you to bring the numbers to them, and they're like, oh, okay, like as if they don't know. So I think there was people who were like, well, I'd like to see examples of how systemic racism exists. And we'll look at the amount of Black-owned businesses in Boston. Look at, let's go on the Seaport and see how many Black-owned businesses are in the Seaport. Or when we're going to a restaurant in the Seaport, how many other people of color are in the restaurant who work there, or are we the only Black people that walk in there and we have to just be normal? That's normalized. Let's look at Sports Talk Radio and to see how many Black people and women are in Sports Talk Radio in Boston. Let's really, if that's what we are going to do here, and if you want to play the, I don't really see it, then let's do that. But I think that's become kind of the new, I don't really know. I'm going to need to see concrete numbers before I agree with Jaylen. Like that was what I got from a couple of followers or people that when I tweeted what he said or said the point the line about the systemic racism exists in Boston and in the rest of society. So I think that's kind of the new Jack. Like you're not going to get an openly racist remark. You're not going to get. They're smarter than that. They're going to get. They want you to bring literal proof and say, well, I didn't see enough proof, so therefore I don't believe it's happening.
And I've seen also the argument of, oh, he's $1 million player. What kind of racism is he enduring? What are you talking about? And that's kind of adding to the concrete examples, despite the fact that Marcus Smart wrote an entire op-ed about an experience outside of the TD Garden where he dealt with racism, and they just turned a blind eye when you do actually give them evidence.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I appreciate Jalen being comfortable and confident to even bring it up at a time where the energy that that this country felt in terms of racial diversity and things of that nature following George Floyd's death. If we're being honest and real with each other, it's died significantly.
Mhm.
You don't get that same energy, you don't get that same vibe, and for Jalen to know that there's a pretty good chance he knew going in that there was going to be a decent segment of folks who weren't trying to hear his message, and that nonetheless did not stop him from making it. It did not blunt what he was seeking to do, and that, to me, it's always good because athletes are no different than pharmacists, than doctors, than trash collectors. They have interests outside of their job, and you have a platform where you can speak about that, and frankly let people understand where you stand on things. That's good. That's why, like, when people respond to different things that happen in the sports world, like if a guy goes 6 for 17 and Joe Fan, who works at computer company XYZ, says that guy was trash, he has a right to feel that way. I'm not going to diminish what he thinks because he's not a sports writer or he doesn't cover the league or anything like that. And I just wish that level of comfort went both ways. That when you're speaking about something that isn't necessarily your job, that doesn't diminish what you're speaking about. And so athletes should have that same privilege when they speak on societal issues that are near and dear to their hearts. But at the end of the day, when you talk about the Boston Celtics, you talk about the NBA, it's about, are you getting it done? Are you winning games? Are you, frankly, pull out the Belichick line, are you doing your job? And against the Pelicans, even though they won the game, they were down by 18 to one of the worst teams in the NBA. And I guess I don't know whether, and I'm gonna throw this out to you, Gary. I don't know whether it's a situation of the Celtics are now beating bad teams or are they actually playing better basketball. I mean, which side of that line equation do you fall on?
I think it's a combination of both, I guess. I mean, I think everyone was disappointed in how they came out against Philadelphia. I just think they took a 10-4 lead. They looked like they were about to really be a factor in that game. And then all of a sudden they get outscored 28-2. Like, this embarrassing. That can't happen. These kind of runs or whatever. But I also think we're seeing around the league, like the Lakers play in Denver and troll by as many as 43. Like, there's just some teams that are just effort ain't there every night in the league like it. I don't know if it's just this season. I'd have to look at some numbers to see about the point differential, but there's some definite, like, there's some teams laying down every here and there. And I just think with the Celtics, yeah, I think that they're just avoiding embarrassment in a sense. Like the Chicago game without Levine, without Lonzo Ball, like without Javante Green, like 3 starters out, and they nearly lost that game. Now, Chicago has some good bench players. The kid from Illinois, the one who's literally 15 for 16 against the Celtics this year, Vucevic played well. Like, they are still capable NBA players. So it's not like a terrible team that they rolled out there, but that's a team you need to handle. Okay. New Orleans, the energy, it's a 12:30 start, but it's a 12:30 start for New Orleans too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why you don't come out with energy. Uh, it's just interesting. Like, I think that they're doing okay. The 2 wins against Indiana, hey, Indiana's a team that they were, I think, 13-5 at home when the Celtics beat them. So they're a good home team. The Celtics handled them at home in Indiana. They came back and avoided some disaster when they beat them. So I mean, you're not winning, you're not beating world beaters, but you're doing what you're supposed to do. And I think that's a step for the Celtics because for the first 40 games, they haven't done what they're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to beat the bad teams. This team, they lost twice to the Clippers. They've lost twice to the Spurs. So like they're not beating the team that they should beat. So the fact that they are, you have to give them some credit. You beat a team you should beat by 12. That was admirable. They played very good defense for the 2.5 quarters. After they trailed 42-24, they shut New Orleans down. Brandon Ingram's a good player. Devontae Graham's a good player. Valanciunas is a good player. So they have capable players. And remember, folks, they came to Boston and won last year with a worse team, right? They came. The Pelicans beat the Celtics twice last year. So, if you want, it's progress. It's not what I think people expect, but at this point, you got to look at if you're trying to be positive, you got to look at the positive side of it and say, listen, they're winning these games.
Yeah,
Gary's being positive.
We need to mark this day, and is a day on this day in Celtics history.
I think you have to lower your expectations. I think that what you have to do at this point is just say, listen, they're making slow, progressive steps. I think if you would have said by now, this team is 20 through 45 games, if beginning of the season, you would have said the Celtics might be, maybe 29-16, 28-17, something like that, a good solid record. Like, no. But the thing is, they're 5 games worse. So you can pick 5 games out of the first 45 and go, they should have won. They should have beat Chicago. They should have beat the Clippers. Like, they should have beat both New York games in New York. They probably should have won those. Like, you can pick 5 out to make it, to say they could easily have 30 wins if they execute in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing about this Celtics team that kind of speaks to that is just they've been so damn all over the map. I mean, guys who, absolutely show out some nights and look like the best thing that money can buy. And other nights don't. They pull a Casper the Friendly Ghost and disappear and leave us wondering which way did they go? Which way did they go? One guy who certainly, when you look at the win over the Pelicans, played really well was Dennis Schroder. 23 points, 9 assists. He only had 2 turnovers, which I've been an absolute, I've been beating that drum forever and a day with him as far as the damn turnovers. That's the part about his game that drives me nuts more than anything else. I can deal with all the other up and down shooting and things like that, but that's the stuff that as a point guard, that needs to be the one thing that folks can be like, you know what? Unless your name is Allen Iverson, I ain't really, I need you to be in control of those damn turnovers. AI was the only guy I could care less how many times he turned the ball over because I knew I could count on him to make significantly more positive plays on an offensive standpoint than those turnovers. But before we delve into Dennis, obviously it's been out there. Dennis did not take kindly to a very legitimate question that our guy Gary Washburn asked him, with basically pointing out what we've all seen from Dennis most of the season, and that feast or famine. Philadelphia had 1 point, Pelicans he had 23, and Gary's question was asking just whether he was getting more comfortable with the team and his role, because again, what he did against New Orleans was, to me, he's had better scoring games, but I don't know if he's had a more complete game in terms of scoring, ball distribution, defense. I thought was decent as well. It felt like a very complete game, and so to ask him about that game and just whether he's closer to being kind of the player that he wants to with this team seemed like a very valid, legitimate question, but he took offense to. But again, Gary, just your thoughts on just his play and just anything else relative to that dude. Because he's that dude to me now. I'm gonna just let you know that.
No, I mean,
he's that dude to me now.
I don't have anything against Dennis. He didn't first of all, we don't get the chance to talk to the guys after every game. Okay, I think people need to understand that.
Like in the locker room,
we don't get to go in the locker room. Yeah. Dennis had 1 point against the Sixers. Okay, his last couple of games, his game log. Okay, I'm reading now. Against the Knicks, the home win, he had 6 points. He was a plus 11 in that night in that big win against the Knicks. Okay. He was 0 for in the win at home against Indiana. He was 0 for 3. Sorry, 0 for 4 from the field. 5 points. He was a -9 in that win. Okay. The next night, 23 points in the win in Indiana. Then he had 1 point against Philly, 16 against Chicago, and 23 against the Pelicans. So in 3 of his last 5 games, he had a -15 and a -9. And then in those 3 other games, he plus 15, plus 14, plus 21. So when the Celtics team, he plays well, the Celtics seem to play well. Okay. But the Philadelphia game was like his worst game. He had not scored anything less than 2 points in a game. I think 3 points in a game in 6 years. So it was his worst offensive game in 6 years. I think I had to ask about that and whether it was something wrong or whether, but his bounce back to come back and score 16 and then score 23. He took offense to be pointing out the Philly game. Obviously, it's a sensitive subject. I understand that. But that was my question. Like, does he feel comfortable? Remember, he missed literally 2 games, and then he missed 6 out of 8 games, COVID protocol, whatever injury, whatever it was over late December, and he missed the Christmas Day game. He missed a series of games. So is he just starting to get comfortable in the offense? Because his last 6 games, 6 points, 5 points, 23, 1, 16, and 23. So he's kind of up and down. So I was trying to get him to ask him whether he thought he was getting more comfortable, why the up and down, why the bumpy roads, and he took offense to it. That's fine. I've said before, I said on the radio, I've had bigger scrapes with athletes. This is not a big deal. Whatever. It's not one of those things that I take personally. You have to have a thick skin to cover this league, to cover professional athletes. If you let this get to you or you take it personal, that he was irritated at my question. I understand. I'm sure. I don't know when we'll have a discussion about it. He obviously approached the question later by saying how bad they played in Philly, how bad they started, which I was touching on, because remember, we didn't get a chance to talk to them after the Philly game. We talked to Peyton Pritchard and we talked to Jason Tatum. We asked Jason the same questions. Why'd you come out terribly? Why did so start? Jason handled it. So Dennis, obviously, I get it. I wasn't aware of it. I'm sure he's like, why are you talking to me that after we won? I can understand that mentality, but my job is not to ask always positive, go get them, go Celtic questions. That's not my job. My job is to ask why the up and down, because he's had an inconsistent year. I mean, he's been at times very good, and when usually he plays good, they play good. And there's times like the Philly game where it was just like, just something wrong. Like 0 for 6, 1 point. He just didn't seem into it. And that hurt the team. So
the part that stood out to me the most was when he asked you, are you for Boston or for he was basically asking, like, are you for the Celtics in a sense? And you basically responded saying that you cover the Celtics. But I think to your point earlier about the fact that the way access has changed for journalists, that makes your job a little bit harder, where if he had no clue who you were genuinely in that moment, then it just goes to show that the way you used to build relationships with these players, and it doesn't always have to be a best friendship, but the fact that they at least acknowledge who you are, acknowledge that you're good at your job. Yes, it's okay to get offended if a question comes up that's a sore topic, but at the same time, they'll still have that respect knowing that you're just there to do your job and you're not necessarily trying to get a gotcha moment, but just do your job and ask a good question. So I think that was where the biggest disconnect was, of him just, if he genuinely doesn't know who you are, then he just was like, who is this guy? Why is he bringing up
or
the
he
past?
thought that I should be asking pro Celtic questions since I'm
valid. Because
and some people believe like why like you're supposed to be down for us. Like, no, I'm not. Like, no offense. My job is to cover the team, the ups and downs, the good times and the bad. I wrote a lot of great stories when I was covering Garnett, Allen, and Pierce. Okay. But I also had to write when they got spanked by LeBron. I also had to write when they lost in the first round to the Knicks. I also had to write all of what's going on. And this team over the last 2 years has been a 500 team and not met expectations. I think any Celtic fan can agree with that. It's not my job to be go get them, guys. You'll get them next time. No, I'm not the team mom, the team dad. I'm not. That's not my job. My job is
Uncle G, why don't you write nice things about us, Uncle G?
yeah.
Right.
My job is to cover this team accurately and tell it like it is. If people have a problem with that, or you hate it, I don't hate the team.
Yeah.
My job is to cover the team. That's the way it is. You know, I know, unfortunately, in our business now, we have a lot of journalism fandom. A lot of fans start websites, write about the team. They're really rooting for the team. They don't like when someone talks disparagingly about the team. So they come at, you know, I get other quote unquote journalists coming at me, and it's just like, you're supposed to be a journalist. Like, I don't go at journalists about how they do their job.
Yeah.
If you want to support the team, fine, understand that that's not my job. The Boston Globe, Bob Ryan, Dan Shawn, all the great, Jack and Butler did not root for the damn Celtics. Like, that's not our job. And I think that has become more blurry with the advent of Twitter and blogs, and everybody starting their own site and wants to write about the team, and you want the team to win, and you want to be a journalist. That's great. But there's a path that we all took, and there's an agreement. I promised my company I will accurately cover the Celtics. I'm not there to root for them, to say only good things. If I have to ask the tough questions, I'll take that on me. If you don't like my questions, or don't like that I ask the tough questions, or because all I know is, okay, here's my thing. The only team I have is the University of California. Okay, when they lose, I want the reporters there to ask the coach the tough questions. I'm hard on my team, so I want why did he fumble the ball? Why did you not call a pass instead of a run? Like, when I'm watching the Cal football sites and whatever, and Cal loses, which is very often.
It is.
Okay?
You're right.
Yes.
You're right.
Thank you, Sherrod.
He was so enthusiastic to say that.
Yeah, when they lose, I want the reporter that covers the team to ask, how come you didn't call that play? I'm hard on my team. I don't want the reporter to ask the easy softball questions and not get the information, or not put the coach on the spot or the players and say, hey, these are college guys, it's different, but just say, hey, why is this going on? Or why did this not happen? That's me. But some people feel like they want certain type of coverage of, I only want positive things to be said. And you don't have to write about that, do you? Like, it's the truth. If I'm writing lies, then please tell me that's a lie. I don't write lies. I write my perspective, the truth. And I said, I will talk. I'm sure Dennis, I have nothing against Dennis. I don't try to grandstand anybody. I think I asked the questions that fans want to know. The fans who call the Celtics want to know the tough questions, because I certainly get a lot of tweets ripping Jason, ripping Jaylen, ripping Ime, ripping, like the fans that are like, these guys aren't doing well. They deserve answers.
Absolutely.
That's fair.
Absolutely. And along those lines, at the end of the day, you're doing your job.
Here comes some. When a dude says at the end of the day,
Oh,
at the end of the day, it's some real ghetto
some
knowledge.
real a gem would be gonna drop.
Gary, I'm just trying to reset the playground so that everyone is cool, calm, and collected. All right.
At the end of the day,
The check's still clear.
You are simply doing your job, and your job is one that involves not pleasing everybody, because that's not your purpose. That's not the goal that you should be seeking for. Your job is to educate, enlighten, and inform. And that comes in many shapes, sizes, and forms. And sometimes it comes in a package that players don't like. But as someone who's done this for many years, and as someone who has had more than his share of scrapes with players in the past, some were avoidable, some not avoidable. It is what it is. You deal with it. You see what happens. You move on. Now, here's the one of the things that I wanted to get into with you guys about the Pelicans game. And again, I fully understand that they're not a very good team. Fully understand that they're just not anywhere close to being full strength. But there were certain things that I saw in that game that are transferable from a blueprint standpoint to other games. For example, Jason Tatum, he had 12 points in the fourth quarter. He was that dude. quarters 1 through 3, Jaylen Brown was their best source of offense. Intermixed with that, you get a little bit from Schroder, you get a little bit from Aaron Neesmith's sighting was in the building. He had actually had that
Yeah,
great and one where
yeah.
Tatum found him on that pass from damn near half court.
Mm-hmm.
That's the blueprint for this team, and I'm just curious, Jaylen specifically, is he best suited to be kind of that setup guy and just kind of let Tatum go take over in the fourth? Or do we need to see more of him in the fourth? Because he had 5 points in the fourth, but he was so good through the first 3 quarters. Should he be that setup? I mean, should they be building him up to be that guy that for 3 quarters is really, really, really that dude, and fourth quarter let Tatum take over?
I hadn't thought about it, but I think there are going to be games where you need him to be the fourth quarter guy. If Tatum's slumping in a sense and Jaylen's on a hot streak, then you want him in. But now that you mention it, I could see that being a good long-term game plan of letting him really build the game up to that point and then letting Tatum finish the game. But it would have to depend. I think it would still be a game-to-game circumstance.
Mm.
I think you gotta let them take turns at times and play off each other. Like if Jalen's got it, then he needs to be the man. If Jason's got it, and then if defenses are adjusting to Jaylen, Jason can take over. I think they just have to figure out that symmetry to take turns. But the key is getting no more shooters around them so defenses don't collapse on both them dudes.
Right.
That's the problem. If you have non-shooters on the floor, defenses can trap both of those guys, or Jaylen resorts to watching Jason dribble drive and sitting in the corner. Jalen's got to move, whether it be backdoor cuts, whether it be setting high picks, whatever it is, they've got to find a way for Jaylen to move when Jason's going to work. But it's also surrounding them with shooters that scare defenses, because the shooters that they've been playing do not scare defenses, or it's like, I'd rather lose to Marcus Smart hitting 5 threes in the fourth quarter than Jason hitting 5 threes in the fourth quarter, or Jason getting to the rim, because people are going to ask, why the hell would you let Jason Tatum beat you? He's their best player. The same with Jaylen Brown. Marcus Smart he got hot. There's been plenty of people that we've seen over the years that just have one great game. And this league is filled with talented players. And it's funny that people think that, you're such, like, I hate the term trash. That's a new millennial term that I cannot stand.
Gary, don't put this on the
trash.
All right,
no player
podcast game. Every time he says millennial, we take a shot.
Okay, no player in the NBA is trash. Okay, there are good players, great players, elite players, all timers, and every NBA player has talent. They work on that 3-pointer. It's just some players do it more often and better than others. So a guy like Marcus Smart is capable. He's hit 11 threes in a game. Okay, but you're going to take your chances and go, let's see him. Remember that playoff game at Cleveland? He hit 11 threes. Like, we've seen Marcus have one of those nights. It just happens twice, 3 times a season. Okay, so you have to take your chances and get beat by that. Teams are willing to do that, especially with Marcus this year shooting 28%. That's the thing. Teams, as I explained last week with the whole Andre Miller example, when he scored 52 points in a game several years ago, and Doc was like, how do you think they're going to play Andre Miller the next night? The same as they did the night before, because he ain't scoring 52 again. It ain't happening. That's a career night. So that's the thing. You've got to move defenses. It's not Jaylen and Jason. It's the pieces around them that can get a defender 2 to 3 steps away because he's afraid he's going to hit the 3. That's why this team needs another shooter. So people, let Jaylen handle it. It's Jason and Jaylen. Like, when they get better players around them, then I think we can accurately judge them on whether they can play together.
And that's really the thing, that the more you watch them play, the clearer it becomes. That's it. That's what's missing. Because I think until this season, you never really knew for sure whether Jason Tatum could be a good playmaker. He's still learning that role. He's getting better at that role. He's not anywhere close to where I think he'll be eventually, but there's clear progress from the beginning of the season
Mhm.
to where he's at now. And the same thing for Jaylen Brown. But again, when you become a more willing playmaker, you need to be surrounded by guys that can make plays. I
Yeah.
mean, as great as Michael Jordan was in Chicago, if he didn't have a guy like Paxson around, if he didn't have a guy like Kerr around, how many championships would he have won? He probably still would have won a few, but he wouldn't have won as many because those guys had the ability to be elevated in the roles that they have and the skill set that they have because of the guys around them. And I think Tatum and Brown are getting to the point where they have the ability to elevate the play of those around them. But to Gary's point, you need better players.
Do
Because I
you
mean,
think we'll be able to? Yeah.
yeah, because Grant Williams right now to me is the one guy that has kind of figured out that those guys are going to be open shots damn near every game. So I kind of need to make those shots.
When
And
you look
once you start adjusting to Grant, which they have, Grant's got to do some different things now. Last game, we saw the trifecta that I thought we would never see from Grant Williams. Back-to-back threes and then a dunk.
He was
Not in layup line, not in pregame, not when the lights are out and he's practicing. We're talking
right
in
in
a not
actual game
practice. We're
time.
talking in the game. I was so happy for that dude because he has been crapped on like no other young buck on this team has been crapped on, and he is making the most of his opportunities. But those opportunities are in large part because of the Jays and him figuring out how to play off of them. And they just need more people to be like Grant Williams and figure out what you do. How can what I do play off of what they do?
I mean, I
So.
look at a guy like PJ Tucker. If you look at the Heat game last night,
Mhm.
the Heat are up three um, against Toronto. Last 25, maybe last 15 seconds or whatever, 18 seconds. The Raptors need to stop, and they can get the ball back. They need to stop to try to tie it. Jimmy Butler penetrates, draws in two defenders. It's PJ Tucker in the corner, drains an open three, game over. That's the kind of thing you're talking about. Like teams are like, listen, we're not gonna let Jimmy Butler, who had a triple double last night, we're not gonna let Jimmy Butler beat us, but we're gonna take chances that PJ Tucker won't be able to hit that corner three, but that's his sweet spot. He hit it. Okay, he was wide open for a reason. It's because teams are like, we're not letting Jimmy Butler go to the rack and get layup and get fouled. That's what he does, or do that little spin and hit that short jumper. So he goes to the basket, he draws defenders. Tucker's defender leaves and he throws it out, and the whole thing is cross your fingers that he won't hit that shot. So that's the thing. Guys got to hit open shots. If you can't hit open shots, you shouldn't. I don't know if you be on the floor. We talk about Neesmith. Love the kid. He plays hard. But if someone mentioned, like, I think I read on Twitter, like, they didn't draft him to be a hustle guy. You can get that dude for a two-way contract. You can get that dude off the street. They drafted him to hit three-pointers, which he hasn't really done yet. And that's what people want. They should play Neesmith more. Neesmith's got to hit shots. He's got to hit open shots because when he's getting shots, they're open. He's got to knock them down. Romeo was starting to do that. The whole thing is just knocking down open shots, taking advantage of the opportunity when you have it, because Jason and Jaylen are going to draw so much attention. And it's like last night, Toronto was like, listen, we're going to defend Butler, and then we're going to take our chances on Tucker. Tucker burned him. L for Toronto.
Yeah. And it raises the question that certainly we talk a lot about in Celtics land these days, and that's who do you keep, who do you trade, and what can you trade? And I guess I had a conversation with Brad Stevens actually about this last week where we talked about just how the up and down nature of this team, it adds a different wrinkle to those conversations that you have with other teams because when the trade deadline comes up, teams that typically are the kind of easy ones to pick off as far as what they're going to do are the teams that are near the top of the standings because all they're looking to do is maybe tweak something a little bit, nothing significant, just maybe get a little bit more depth to the mix. And teams at the back end of the pack who are just like, come one, come all. Everything you see, tell me what you want. Let's make a deal. Though, and then you got teams like the Celtics who have shown flashes of being a really good team. And then you lose to the Clippers twice and you get your ass whipped by teams that you got no business losing to. New Orleans with like basically one or two rotation guys already on a bad team, they got you down 18 at the crib before you have to rally and come back. So I guess my question to you guys is looking at the way this roster is constructed, look at the up and down nature of it, and then a new factor in all of this, they've won 5 of their last 6 games. How do you think the wins, the trade wins, are going to be blowing between now and February 10th? I mean, are the Celtics going to be more active than we've seen in past years and look to get some things done, or are they going to be kind of what we've seen the last few years and just kind of maybe do 1 or 2 minor deals, but nothing that is like roster slash league altering?
I can't speak to what Brad Stevens will do, but if he actually wants to shake up this roster, everyone has to be on the table except for maybe Jaylen and Jason. But he has to be willing to, I think, give up a significant amount. But to Gary's point, that would have to be for a playmaker, a consistent playmaker, because when we talk about everyone else on the roster that hasn't been making those shots, it also comes down to it seems as though the confidence isn't there either. So you need someone that can confidently go into the game at any point and just make a play or help the team make a play in some kind of way or fashion. And right now they don't have anyone that can do that. And if Brad can get a team to be willing to give somebody up that could bring that kind of influence to the roster, I think that could hopefully change the outcome of the rest of the season. But I don't know who would be willing to make that kind of deal with Boston.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll make some minor moves. I think that it's discouraging because let's face it, like they're 5.5 games out of the top spot in the East. As bad as they've been at times, as up and down as the losses have mounted and the tough losses have mounted, and people think this is a cursed season, they're 5.5 games from Chicago and Brooklyn in the East. So if you used to turn into sellers, I think it'd be really discouraging for your fan base. I think they can turn into buyers, but they're probably going to have to part with Romeo or Aaron, maybe even Peyton. I probably would trade Peyton last. I think he's got the guts, the fearlessness in the game to stick around. But I think they're probably going to have to part with one of those guys. And the question is, how attached is Brad Stevens to some of his youngsters? Is he as attached as Danny was?
Right.
Because as we learned, the attachment to the young guys burned Danny a lot. Like it just burned him. The attachment to Carson Edwards, the attachment, just some of these attachments that he had that he was
James Young.
Yeah, that he was crossing his fingers that it was going to work out, and it didn't. And you're going to have to part with something. Teams are going to want. Okay, Brad already gave up a first round pick in the Kemba deal. So is he going to give up another one? Or is he going to which I think he would have to be 23. I don't think you can give up consecutive first round picks.
No, you can't.
So what's going to happen there? What does Brad have to offer? And is he going to dangle Aaron? And I'm not saying teams are going to really need Aaron, but he's a prospect. You can throw him into a deal. A team can take another look at him. So what's Brad going to sacrifice to get this done? Because teams are going to understand, and teams are going to charge high prices. They're going to go high until they maybe get desperate. But the fact is, I mean, Danny gave away Javonte Green last year. Javonte starting for the Bulls. Like some of these deals were just really like head scratching. Like, you want to give Tice away, which hurts your defense in the second half after the All-Star break, and you threw in Javonte Green, and you threw in an NBA starter. Like, no, no.
On a team with like the best record in the East.
to get 16 games of Evan Fournier.
Oh gosh,
yeah. So for me, Brad's got to be smart, and I think he's extremely smart. He's got to make the right move, and he's got to be fearless and be like, listen, like to whoever prospect, it just hasn't worked. Maybe you'll resurrect yourself or grow or flourish in another spot, but it's not an easy decision because Neesmith could become a good shooter somewhere, or Romeo. You would tend not to want to move those types of guys, but you can't have those. You can't have your team filled with prospects who ain't done it yet either. You can't. That's what happened the last. You had 5 or 6 guys in the roster holding spots that shouldn't have been on the team.
But you bring up a good point. You mentioned Fournier, you mentioned Javonte Green, and the way that they've had breakout seasons, so to speak. That's a little dramatic, I think, but they've had better seasons than they did in Boston. Do you think part of it is them just not being utilized in the right way when they were here?
Well, I don't think Fournier's had a good
At least
season. I think
Fournier.
he's had a good season against Celtics.
Had good
Yeah.
games, yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah. I think if Fournier played Celtics, he'd be Supermax. He'd be all time great. He'd be on the top 75. He played the Celtics every game.
He'd be the new logo.
Right.
Exactly. So let's be honest. He had 35 against the Celtics and like 11 against the rest of the league.
Yeah.
My goodness. So I think that sometimes some of these players aren't being utilized as much. Javonte was a growing player. He's an athlete more than he was a basketball player, but the Bulls have turned him into a defender, slasher, and that's what the Celtics are trying to do last year. And I think also he was close to Jason Tatum. That was his best friend on a team, and to just kind of give him away like that, and just here, Chicago, like we want to get under the luxury tax, and that was I think that if Brad could do that over again, I'm sure he would probably bring Javonte back because he's kind of the guy they need, a guy who could just hit that corner three, freakish athlete, defend, give you energy. He doesn't ask for the ball, doesn't want to score. But I think
and he's the best friend of your best player.
Right. Why not?
Gary, and to your point, Gary, you ain't got to pay a lot of money for him.
No, he comes cheap.
You don't have to pay him like DeAndre Jordan money.
No,
well, now you would have to pay a little more though because
he's coming. He came a little cheap, but I mean, I think that the Celtics have to consider all their options, but I also think that players, do. I think they might flourish other places, but would you have paid $78 million for Evan? Yeah.
No.
That's a lot of money.
No.
Evan, like the Knicks forked up $78 million for that dude.
Yeah,
like just imagine him averaging 11 and 3 or 4, what he's averaging in New York, and having that here on a $78 million contract. Like
the fans would riot. They would burn down the TD Garden.
So that's the thing, is that the Knicks overpaid for him because they were trying to take him away from the Celtics, and the Celtics were like, "We got it, okay, bro, you got him." And
but y'all want a backup from last year? Okay, y'all got it.
It'll end up being a smart move. You got the trade exception that you can use all up into the summer in that Evan deal. But to me, I don't know if it's guys flourishing. People ask, well, are guys trying to get to, Horford got out of Boston, Hayward, Irving. I think they're all different circumstances. Is there a stain on this organization after the Isaiah thing? I don't know, but what you would like if you're a Celtic fan is for the team to maximize its assets as much better than they have, and they haven't. You look at other teams, like Memphis has Bane. Let's not talk about him. Okay, we talk enough about Desmond Bane, but they also have Konchak, some dude number 46. They also have DeAnthony Melton. Like, they have guys who they picked up off the scrap heap. Or we were looking. I was looking with Jakey from the Athletic. Herb Jones for the Pelicans, 2nd round pick. He's starting for the Pelicans. And I'm like, hey, he's a rookie. Did you see his athleticism? Did you see his potential? That's he's going to be a player. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the kind of guys the Celtics got to land on. You can't keep failing with your 2nd round picks or giving them away, or you got to score with some of these guys. And that's the thing. That's what hasn't happened. Because I was like, Herb Jones. I know he played at Alabama, and I looked at his 35th overall pick. That's the thing. It's like you got to score on those guys more often than they have.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing, as we kind of look at the Celtics team and look at their roster and look at their players, there's really no clear path that they need to take that you can look at and say this is going to make this team better. They can go and look for a knockdown shooter like a Buddy Hill. They can go try to add someone who might be a long term pickup right now. A guy like Jalen Smith in Phoenix, where he's probably not going to re-sign with the Suns, but he's played really well. I could see them making a run at him. They could look for a guy that's maybe not even playing now, who they can maybe get on the really cheap and hope that he can give them some juice down the road. Guy like TJ Warren, who has always been about getting buckets. And so obviously there's a lot of direction that the Celtics can go. What I wanted to do, Gary, was kind of pivot back to where if we're going to talk about ground zero for the trade deadline, it has to be Ben Simmons and what's going on with him. And I know you had in your I think your most recent edition of the Boston Globe's Court Sense, you had some trade scenarios involving Mr. Simmons out there, and I wanted to have you shed a little bit of light on some of these scenarios. And we're not gonna. I don't think we're gonna go through all, but there's some I find
Sherrod,
interesting.
can you stop talking like JJ on Good Times? Can you stop that?
Why you
Stop
gotta
that.
do you like that? Oh my
Stop that.
god.
Shed a
Now,
little
Gary,
yag. Oh,
you know
stop that.
damn well,
Stop
damn well
talking
they
about
have no
JJ.
Break
idea
it
who
up.
JJ is.
Break it up,
Google
guys.
it. Google
Kwani.
it. YouTube
You know,
video.
Look, I don't even want to get into this right now. Can you
Kwani,
read
we
us
need
the
Kwani.
scenario?
Next week, Kwani, we bringing the drinks
Oh
to the
my
show.
god.
We bringing
Okay,
the drinks. We gonna have we gonna bring the
it's like
drinks to the
drink
show.
champs.
Every millennial reference from Gary shot.
I'm just saying, like
I'm
Google
just
more
saying.
More
times.
Trader Joe's water.
Yeah, Google Good Times. Go ahead.
He
I
took a
hate
shot.
this
All right.
dude. You know
Tell us
that.
the scenarios. See,
I hate
I don't like this is ageism, actually. You know, it goes both ways.
exactly.
And
Another
I'm
shot, another
being
drink,
personally
Kwani. Another
attacked.
drink for us, Kwani.
Another drink. Another
There
drink.
you go. All right.
Hydrate. Stay hydrated, my friend.
Let's go. Yeah. We're gonna have some drinks next week. All right. Gary, you've got Damian Lillard and a first round pick to Philly for Mr. Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, and Jaden Springer. I like Jaden. He's a pretty good player.
He's in the G League. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact is that if you're Portland, Lillard's going to have the surgery. You don't know how invested he's at his prime, right? Like, I don't, he's at that 30, 31 age. He gives Philly what they want now. So if you're Philadelphia, you give them Simmons, and then you give them Thybulle, a young defender, and then you throw in like a prospect and you swap first round picks, or you have a first round pick involved. To me, that gives you a player in his prime. Portland can start over because Portland's not making the playoffs. They're not going to do anything as you're currently constructed. And then they can rebuild the roster around, if you want to include McCollum and build around McCollum and Simmons. Anthony Simons is a guy to look out for. He has had really good games. He's one of these guys who was from, be clowning not the G League at night, but he came out of IFG Academy, didn't go to college, kind of like, worked on his game and did that. And then all of a sudden entered the draft. And it's taken him a couple years to develop. But now he's like 21, 22. And he had a 39, 36 point game over the last couple of weeks. So he's developing. So Portland's like, okay, I'm not saying a Lillard replacement, but now we have someone on the rise. We have control over, who's not going to be maxed out or make a boatload of money anytime soon. Let's take advantage of that. Let's bring in a younger player in Simmons, another player in Thybulle and Springer, and then Philadelphia gets the player that can help them win a championship this damn year, because their window is open and it's not going to get any wider. The East is to be had. So that's my thing. Lillard comes in, gives you the point guard you need. He can move to two with maybe at times with Tyrese Maxey. We saw what Maxey did the other night against the Celtics, where he was just good, 5 threes. He's an improving player. So to me, that deal makes sense if Portland is willing to part with Lillard, but he's a franchise guy. He'll have his number retired. He's an all-time great Blazer. So it's hard to trade those guys because you're a close-knit community, and then you're trading them for a player who's overall very unpopular at this point.
Now, you had another deal that, again, I think this one Whew. If I'm Philly wins this deal hands down if it went down like this, and that's John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, and Jalen Johnson to Philly for Simmons. Now, why would you do this if you're Atlanta?
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of outgoing talent you just put into the curbside.
Because Atlanta needs a culture change. Like they won against Milwaukee the other night, but they're 18-25. The defense is terrible. There's two. The thing is, and you could ask about teams like Sacramento, at times Oklahoma City. When you throw all these young guys together, and you say to yourself, we're going to grow into a championship team. We got all these young guys. We got all these lottery picks. Okay.
Man, you sound like Boss Hog from Dukes of Hazzard, man. What you talking?
That's
You talking
not
about me
true.
and JJ?
Yeah, I don't even know that.
Yeah, let's move on.
It's not even right.
Let's move on. We're gonna take over the world with all these young guys. All these young guys don't always get along. Collins has not been happy for a while. Okay, DeAndre Hunter's always been injured. They already moved Cam Reddish. So if you want something around Trey, maybe you can move the Trey to two guard. You just make a splash. You make a deal that just kind of changes the culture. You bring in a Simmons, an established player. I'm not saying, and remember, you've got Clint Capella and the other young
Kevin Huerter,
but the other young rising big, the kid out of USC who's like in his second year. Okay, Collins is the guy who hasn't been happy for a while. So I just think Atlanta, you do that for a culture change to like, okay, this ain't working with all these young guys. We put Huerter, we put Hunter, we put Reddish, we put Trey Young, we put Collins. All these guys are around the same age. Like it's working in Memphis, right? Memphis is the perfect example of how it can work.
For Memphis, they seem
they look like they're having fun. All them dudes is like 23, 24.
Yeah.
All them dudes is young, athletic. You don't have, then you got Steven Adams just, being the security guard and the bouncer.
Lifting people.
Yeah, just moving dudes. Like you have a team that's growing together, but that doesn't always work. Look at Sacramento. Oh, we're gonna put Tyreek Evans and DeMarcus Cousins and all these young guys together, and we're gonna have a powerhouse in Sacramento. It never worked because the young guys didn't get together. I don't know if it's working in Atlanta, even though they won. Okay, they snapped a 10-game home losing streak. Imagine if the Celtics lost 10 games in a row at home. Like what it would be like in Boston. 10 in a row at home. Like in Atlanta's a place, as you know, that road players have a hard time getting up for the game and getting it's a lot to do with Atlanta.
That we can't tell.
You should not lose. Atlanta should be home. It's like Miami and the Lakers. It should be a home court advantage for the Hawks.
You should be used to the lifestyle in Atlanta.
There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do in
Atlanta. There's a lot of different ways we calling you.
I was just about to say that. The Lou Williams special.
The Lou Williams wings be calling you. They be calling you home.
Yes, they do.
But so I think that would be a culture change kind of deal. And of course, Nate McMillan he's a defender. They're the worst defense in the league, so you need defenders. You got enough scoring. So that would be, in my opinion, a culture change for the Hawks.
Yeah. I would say
well explained.
I would say Gary's got some more trade scenarios involving Ben Simmons. And I would suggest you check out the Boston Globe's Court Sense. Check those out as well as his other good stuff, good notes in there, including a conversation with a guy that we were talking about a little bit earlier, Desmond Bain. Good stuff from G-Wash there as well. For the Celtics, looking ahead to their schedule real quick, they've got Charlotte on Wednesday, Portland, my guy, Chauncey Billups back in the building.
Everyone's his guy.
Reunited and
it feels so good.
I got that one.
You got that one, Kwani? All right.
See, we gotta take a shot. We need to take a shot now. Kwani got that one.
Like acapella? Are we gonna start an acapella group?
No.
Okay, never mind.
No, we're not doing that.
Let's simmer down, Kwani. Simmer down. You sure that's water you drinking, Kwani?
Yes. No. Trader Joe's natural spring water.
Chauncey comes in on Friday. We're at Washington on Sunday afternoon, and then Tuesday the Kyle Draper
Speaking of
return,
Kings, right?
Sacramento Kings. We
Mhm.
might see if we can get Kyle on the podcast
A
next week.
4-box.
We're gonna go to I'm gonna see if we can go with a four corners offense. Four corners.
It'll be fun.
That'll be good. That'll be good.
Just everyone yelling at each other. That's what is gonna happen. It seems.
Who?
The two of y'all.
Gary, what is she talking
They're
about?
gonna find something to argue about.
What is she talking about?
I guarantee you. I think I need to really make a drinking game for this.
We should make that. We should come up with Connie. That maybe that should be Connie's homework for next week to come up with like a
Oh, I
list
have to do
of
that.
topics
Okay.
to be part of our drinking game.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll work on that.
I know you will. I know you will. What else you got? Speaking of working on stuff, Connie, what else are you working on and working with coming up on NBC 10?
What am I working on?
Kwani, can you bring the Cheetah Girls picture next week?
Oh my god, I don't even know where the picture is. For the record, for people, because you brought it up last week and we didn't clarify. I was not with the actual Cheetah Girls. My friends who went to BC with me decided to come to a game, and it was probably the most diverse that you've ever seen.
Y'all look like the Cheetah.
They had a Hispanic girl, a black girl, diversity was there.
All the diversity boxes were checked.
All of them.
Y'all look like y'all was about to go on tour. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't
just saying.
Bring
the Cheetah Girls picture and a picture with Michael B. Jordan.
I think I showed them the Michael B. Jordan picture already.
Did you?
He will not let this one die. We've talked about it. Maybe we haven't shown it.
We've talked about it.
I guess
Connie took a picture with him on the court. I remember that picture.
Yes, I did.
Connie was like, not a big deal. It's just Michael B. Jordan. It's like,
can you kind of can you push back for me, Michael D. Jordan? You ain't the real Mike, so you need to.
You're the same person that talks about being objective, being a journalist. In that moment, I was trying not to be a fangirl. I was trying to be professional, and just I was still working.
We know you was working. We know you was working.
Yeah.
Michael A. Jordan, Michael X. Jordan. Can you step 3
honestly,
feet back?
Honestly, if it was the original Michael Jordan, I probably
you would have smiled.
I was so proud of Kwani though, because Kwani was such a pro, man. She was like,
oh my god.
I mean, I was impressed with you, Kwani.
Thank you.
You handled yourself way better than I did like years ago when I met Tony Braxton for the first time. I wasn't nearly as professional about things as you were.
Also, I just never liked situations where
Steph Curry.
There was like a long line of women trying to take pictures with him, and I just didn't want to seem as though I was being thirsty. So that's kind of why I distanced myself.
You took a picture with him.
I know, but I took it. But I took it because the only reason I took it because towards the end, I was the only person who hadn't taken a picture. So he was like, "Are you sure you don't want to take this picture?" So I was like, "Okay, I'll take it," because then I didn't want to seem like
you asked me to take it. I'll take it
reluctantly.
But it wasn't even like that. It was more of like, "All right, you might as well just take it because everyone else took it." I don't know.
Kwani handled herself well though.
I tried. Okay.
Kwani did not. There was no like, oh my god, none of that.
I just was like.
Much
Michael
respect.
K, Michael L,
Michael
Jordan,
J, Jordan,
Michael Z, Jordan.
Oh, it's Michael W, Jordan.
I'm gonna need you to take 3 steps to the left. Away. Okay, now we can take
the right Michael Jordan.
Exactly, because you ain't be like Mike. No.
Oh my
she
goodness.
was like, if you ain't the real Mike.
Exactly.
Okay.
Not legit. I'm just kidding. But you asked what I've been up to. I would just say stick with the Hub today if you haven't been watching it. Also, 10 questions with NBC 10 Boston. I still have the last interview that I did, but I'm planning on rolling out some good interviews over the next few weeks as we lead up to Black History Month and eventually Women's History Month, and just making sure I'm giving some flowers to the people that have made an impact in Boston and beyond.
Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm still doing stuff for fullcourtpressbulletin.com about the Celtics, also ebony.com. I had a column recently looking at just the NFL and the just the dearth of Black coaches and how, what happened on like the first Monday after the season, because I don't like the term Black Monday. I think that just that term has, I know it has to do with the stock market years ago back in the 80s, and I get that, I know that, but I still don't like the damn term anyway. I wrote about just the coaches that were going to focusing specifically on Brian Flores, who BC alum, was on Belichick's staff, and how his whole situation is a reminder that it really isn't about winning and losing. Um, it's about relationships. And so, oh God, what is she?
I've been doing that the entire time. I
I
also
was,
had a
I was
Boston
pretending
College
not
sweater on for
I
listening.
was pretending not to notice until
Of
it
course,
damn
you
near
can't
covered your
not
entire
notice.
face. It's like, okay,
I'm going to be obnoxious.
she is really going to be obnoxious. So anyway, just kind of wrote about that and just kind of threw my 2 cents in there. Listen, we sick and tired of seeing your BC pigeons. All right.
Can we have a show and tell day? I feel like I've just been showing the people that are watching this episode.
Seriously, do you really want to go there?
Yeah, let's go there. What else I got? I don't have anything else to show. Next week.
Exactly, and I got more. I got stuffed animals. I got bobble dolls.
All right, next week, show and tell. That's it.
Literally pull it off the floor.
I haven't done that since kindergarten.
Come on,
find some cool stuff.
Come on,
Okay,
Kwani. You don't want this. You don't want this smoke.
We don't want that.
No. So,
Gary, yeah.
Go ahead, Kwani. Go ahead.
No, I was just asking Gary what he's been up to other than writing all the time.
Other than getting into it with Celtic guards, just covering the team, writing my column, Sunday notes. I have an interview with a legendary Celtic coming up this week.
Ooh, that's a tease.
Yeah, legendary Celtic coming up this week. You all know and love him, so he'll be talking to me this week. And I
was gonna make a joke.
Just a lot going on, and the all-15 all-time Celtics team is coming out. The 75th anniversary Celtics team is coming out. I think any day now.
Yeah.
And I was able to vote on that, so we can talk about that. We can talk about that. We can talk about that. We can talk about that next week, and I'm sure I'll get hammered for my ballot, but it is what it is.
Gary, I'll show my ballot.
I did vote Bill Russell and Larry Bird and Bob Cousy. So
you did or did not?
I did, of course. Yeah, it was
a hard. You don't show your ballots?
Huh? Yeah, because it was hard. I mean, it's very. I mean, you can go 25 on that team. I mean, if you want to go back to Bill Sharman and the Jones boys, Casey and Sam. If you want to include Cedric Maxwell, and then if you want to include guys who didn't have great long stints in Boston, do you put Isaiah Thomas on the team? Second all-time scoring season in Celtic history behind Havlicek. Is he on your all 15? You're choosing probably the guys in their prime, 15 greatest Celtics. Does Isaiah make your team, maybe third team? So all those are intriguing questions. It'll be interesting to see that when the team comes out.
Yeah,
it was hard. I mean, it was so much harder than I thought, because I think, Gary, remind me, was it 2 teams or 3 teams? I can't remember.
3 teams of 5, so 15 players.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
it was hard.
And it's
I'm excited for these results.
The Kuzis, Havliceks, Pierces, all Birds, McHale's, all that. That's great. That fills in like 11 or 12 or 13. Then you do Dennis Johnson, Tiny Archibald. Where does Parrish go? Do you put Parrish on there? I think you would. What about Tommy Heinsohn, Don Nelson, a lot of players from the 60s, who Dave Cowens, where do you put him? Do you put him on your first team as your first team center? As Garnett? Like, it's all types of intriguing things about that team. So it was fun. So we can discuss that.
Franchise with 17 championships. I don't think that's an easy process at all.
No,
at all.
No, it's not. I mean, there were a couple no-brainers. The Russells, the Kuzis of the world, but you're really only looking at like maybe 10, maybe 11 spots for a franchise that has had just incredible success.
Also, everyone's numbers retired too, so you gotta.
Except in the 50s.
Yes.
Like this is episode 59, and I don't believe that there's ever been a Celtic who has worn jersey number 59. I know the 50s, that for whatever reason, Celtics players, they really did not they weren't feeling the numbers in the 50s.
So. Yeah, they're not cute numbers. Just like
I don't know.
Yeah, it's really random, Sherrod, but okay.
I'm just saying 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55,
now we
56.
Know the trivia.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Boom. I'm just trying to help you out, Gary. Put some knowledge in your knowledge bank. That's all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you give us knowledge, we give you knowledge. Everybody gives each other knowledge.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what this podcast is all about. And once again,
Oh,
shout
Kwani,
out
who
to
are
our
you?
sponsor.
You're not quite gonna come hard at the end,
Shorty,
Gary.
calm
You
down. Calm down, Sister Soldier. Like, calm down.
Come on, Queen Latifah, let him know.
Come on, Sister Soldier. I know it's
Sign up
ladies.
for-
I know it's ladies
trying to
first
get
and all
left
that.
out
But
there. See, just
I know it's ladies first. Look that up
Ooh,
too.
ladies first. Ladies
Ladies
first.
first. You never heard that, have you?
see. I know. I have.
That's a
Never.
drink, Gary.
I hate
Oh.
admitting it.
Kwani, know your
Wrong
rap
about it.
history. A group
That's
of
a drink.
women led by
Mhm.
Queen Latifah made
Okay.
a rap song called "Ladies First."
Okay, I feel like I've heard it before.
Okay, like
Does that count?
and you know what? There's a video too. Like it
Oh my
was
God.
19.
They had video back
There's
then.
videos back then. Yes. Look up when you get off this
I will.
podcast.
I'm
It's
ready to
Queen
look it
Video
up
Latifah.
now.
Ladies First.
I'm gonna press
Queen
play as soon
Latifah.
as we end.
And before
Remember
Queen
when he-
Latifah was in Chicago, like, oh, you mean the girl from Chicago? The girl who was like
I know
in
who
the
Queen
Equalizer?
Latifah is.
Yeah, her.
Oh
She used
my
to rap.
gosh. No, I don't know her from The Equalizer.
She used to rap. She kind of had a rap career
I'm
before.
so mad that I don't have any damn drinks near me that I can.
She had a rap career before she started acting and doing Broadway and all
Really?
that. you
Yeah, I only know her
and
from
doing
Saturday Night
Maybelline
Live.
commercials. Yeah, Queen was no joke.
Are you done?
Kwani, take
I'm
us
done.
out, Kwani.
Okay. So thank you all for listening this far. I know it's been a lot of chaos during this episode, but we appreciate y'all for sticking with us. For Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani A. Lunis. You're listening to the A-List podcast. We'll be back next week.